Most people think the Cold War ended with the fall of the Berlin Wall, a relic of a divided world. But today, from the South China Sea to Silicon Valley, a new contest for power is reshaping the global order. One that is both more interconnected and more unpredictable than ever before. Satellite images reveal sprawling ports, warships maneuvering through contested waters, and high-tech factories glowing late into the night. Beneath the surface of everyday headlines, a deeper rivalry is unfolding, one that could define the rules and risks of the 21st century. The United States and China are locked in a competition that echoes the Cold War in some ways, but breaks the old mold in others. This rivalry is about far more than just military strength. It's about who will control the world's infrastructure, technology, and alliances for decades to come. Many still believe that economic ties make real conflict impossible. After all, the US and China are each other's largest trading partners, with supply chains that stretch across continents. But what if this very interdependence is now a source of vulnerability rather than security? The question is no longer whether a new Cold War is coming. It's already here, playing out not just in military posturing, but in the invisible circuits of global trade, digital networks, and diplomatic maneuvers that touch every corner of our lives. The original Cold War was defined by ideological blocks, nuclear brinkmanship, and a world split between capitalism and communism. The US and the Soviet Union faced off in proxy wars, building rival alliances and keeping their economies largely separate. That era shaped the geography of power, NATO on one side, the Warsaw Pact on the other. The world's trade routes and political loyalties were drawn like battle lines, with each camp seeking to expand its influence through military and economic pressure. Today's US-China rivalry is different at its core. Instead of a world divided by iron curtains, we see a web of connections, $700 billion in annual trade, integrated supply chains, and mutual investments that tie the two economies together. Yet this interdependence has become a weapon in itself. Sanctions, tariffs, and export controls are now tools of statecraft. The threat of decoupling, the deliberate separation of economies, hangs over boardrooms and parliaments from New York to Shanghai. Technology has become the new high ground. Whoever leads in semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing will shape the future of economies, militaries, and even the flow of global information. The United States has imposed strict export controls on advanced chips and technology, aiming to slow China's rise in key sectors. In response, China is investing billions to achieve self-sufficiency, determined never to be cut off from the technologies that underpin modern power. 5G networks, satellite constellations, and data centers are now arenas of competition. Control over these systems means more than economic advantage. It means the ability to surveil, disrupt, or dominate rivals in ways that were unimaginable during the last Cold War. Geography remains a battleground, but the flashpoints have shifted. The South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait are now the most dangerous places on the planet, where military power and national ambition collide over tiny islands and vital shipping lanes. China's island building and naval expansion in the South China Sea threaten to redraw the map of maritime power. These waters carry a third of global trade, and much of East Asia's energy control here means leverage over the world economy. The United States, meanwhile, is reinforcing alliances with Japan, Australia, and the Philippines, aiming to contain China's reach and guarantee freedom of navigation. Military exercises, new basing agreements, and arms sales signal a region bracing for confrontation. Beyond Asia, the contest is global. China's Belt and Road Initiative is building infrastructure and forging ties across Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. Roads, ports, and railways are more than construction projects. They are bets on future influence. The US and its allies are responding with their own investment initiatives, seeking to counter China's reach and keep key countries in their orbit. The world is seeing the rise of competing blocs, not unlike the alliance systems of the last Cold War. But this time, the lines are blurrier. Influence is measured not only in military bases, but in who builds the ports, finances the roads, and controls the flow of energy and data. The battle for global loyalty now plays out in boardrooms, parliaments, and digital infrastructure as much as on the battlefield. Local tensions now have global consequences. A US ban on advanced chips from Taiwan can halt car manufacturing in Europe and disrupt electronics in America. A reminder that supply chains are as strategic as oil pipelines once were. Tensions in the South China Sea don't just threaten regional peace. They can send shockwaves through global energy markets, spiking prices, and disrupting shipping routes that connect factories from Vietnam to Rotterdam. Belt and road debt crises in Africa or South Asia can destabilize entire regions, forcing governments to choose sides, renegotiate alliances, or risk economic collapse. The ripple effects are felt in commodity prices, migration flows, and diplomatic alignments far beyond the original flashpoint. The stakes are not just about who builds more ships or satellites. They are about who sets the rules for global trade, technology standards, and digital infrastructure. The invisible architecture that determines who prospers and who falls behind. Critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and rare earths have become new sources of leverage. Whoever controls their supply can shape the future of electric vehicles, batteries, and clean energy, putting pressure on both rivals and allies. Sea lanes and choke points, from the Strait of Malacca to the Panama Canal, remain vital arteries of world commerce. Naval power and port access are tools for both deterrence and coercion, giving countries the ability to disrupt rivals without firing a shot. The risk of escalation is no longer limited to tanks and missiles. Cyber attacks, economic warfare, and gray zone tactics. Actions just below the threshold of open conflict can paralyze infrastructure, steal secrets, or undermine trust between nations. Diplomatic standoffs have grown sharper, with both the US and China pressuring allies to choose sides in technology and trade. The EU, India, and Southeast Asian nations are caught between competing offers, forced to weigh economic benefits against strategic risk. Recent years have seen a surge in military exercises, sanctions, and high-profile summits. Each move is a signal, a message to rivals and allies that the contest is intensifying and that no one can afford to stand still. Talk of decoupling and self-reliance is growing louder. Both sides are racing to secure supply chains, stockpile critical goods, and invest in domestic industries that can withstand economic warfare or sudden blockades. The world is witnessing the fragmentation of what once seemed like a single, globalized economy. Competing standards for technology, duplicated supply chains, and rising tariffs all threaten to raise costs and slow innovation. Flashpoints like Taiwan or the South China Sea are more volatile than ever. A miscalculation by a single ship, aircraft, or politician could trigger a crisis with consequences far beyond the immediate region. The energy transition, shifting from fossil fuels to renewables, adds another layer of complexity. Control over minerals, grids, and new technologies will determine not just economic winners, but the pace of global climate action. Cooperation on global challenges, from pandemics to climate change, is now hostage to great power rivalry. Where the US and China once coordinated on issues like nuclear proliferation or financial crises, suspicion now blocks even basic dialogue. Financial systems are also in play. The US dollar remains the world's reserve currency, but China is pushing for alternatives, experimenting with digital currencies and new payment networks to reduce its reliance on Western-controlled finance. Media and information flows are increasingly shaped by state power. Competing narratives, censorship, and disinformation campaigns are tools for both domestic control and global influence, shaping how billions perceive the stakes of this rivalry. Innovation is turning into an arms race. Nations are pouring resources into artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and quantum computing, technologies that could tip the balance of power or render old defenses obsolete. The struggle for dominance is not confined to governments. Corporations, universities, and even cities are caught in the crossfire, forced to navigate new rules, export bans, and shifting alliances as the contest escalates. Education and talent flows are now strategic assets. Restrictions on student visas, research partnerships, and academic exchanges are closing off the cross-border collaboration that once fueled global progress. Infrastructure is being weaponized. Ports, undersea cables, and digital networks are targets for both investment and sabotage, as nations seek to control the arteries of the modern world or deny them to rivals. The risk of open war remains real, but the more likely danger is a world of constant tension, where every local dispute is a potential trigger for disruption, and every technological advance is seen as a threat to the balance of power. Small countries are not just bystanders. Nations from Indonesia to Kenya are leveraging great power competition to extract investment, play rivals against each other, or hedge their bets in an uncertain world. Global governance is fraying. Institutions like the United Nations, World Trade Organization, and World Health Organization are struggling to adapt as great powers block reforms, veto resolutions, and pursue their interests outside traditional frameworks. The contest is not just about who leads, but about what kind of world will emerge. Competing models of governance, economic development, and social control are on display, each with its own appeal and risks. For ordinary people, the consequences are real, but often hidden. Prices at the pump, the availability of smartphones, and even the stability of jobs can be shaped by decisions made in Washington, Beijing, or a remote island in the Pacific. The new Cold War is not a simple replay of the past. Its front lines are invisible, its weapons are digital, and its battles are fought as much in markets and mines as in militarized zones. Assumptions that economic ties guarantee peace have proven dangerously incomplete. Interdependence can create stability, but it can also create new forms of coercion, making the stakes higher and the risks more unpredictable. The smarter question is not whether the US and China will go to war, but how their rivalry will reshape the systems that everyone depends on: trade, technology, energy, and the rules that keep the world running. The deeper strategic trade-off is between resilience and efficiency. The world gained unprecedented prosperity through global integration, but now faces a future where redundancy, security, and self-sufficiency are prized, even at the cost of higher prices and slower growth. As alliances shift and new blocs emerge, the danger is not just confrontation, but fragmentation. The risk is a world where cooperation collapses, standards diverge, and crises become harder to contain or resolve. The real lesson of this new era is that the world's stability rests on systems that look solid, until stress reveals their fragility. Every local decision, from a chip ban to a naval patrol, can echo across continents and set off chain reactions. The stakes are not simply who leads or who wins a single contest. They're about how the world will work, who sets the rules, who controls the infrastructure, and who gets to shape the future. The new Cold War is a contest over the world's operating system. Its outcome will determine not just the balance of power, but the very architecture of global order for generations to come. Understanding these dynamics is not just the work of policymakers or generals. It is essential for anyone who wants to grasp the forces shaping our century, our economies, and our everyday lives. In this era, power is measured not only by armies and economies, but by the ability to shape connections, set standards, and withstand shocks. The world's future will be written as much in the logic of networks as in the maps of old empires. As nations maneuver for advantage, every local move carries global weight. The contest is not over territory alone, but over the systems and norms that will define how humanity solves problems, or fails to do so. The real danger is not that one country dominates a single technology, a trade route, or a currency. The real danger is that the world's stability depends on systems that only appear safe until a crisis reveals how fragile they truly are.